Welcome to the deep dive, where we like to dig into these complicated topics and hopefully make them a little bit easier to understand.
Yeah.
Today, we're going to be diving into something kind of different. We're tackling a scientific review article
Oh, okay.
about a drug you might actually know from those heartworm medications you give your dog.
Interesting.
It's ivermectin.
You probably didn't know that ivermectin has been used to treat people for decades.
Oh, wow.
It's been really helpful for fighting parasitic diseases.
Yeah.
But what's really interesting is scientists are still finding out new things about it all the time.
It's like the little engine that could, this drug. So the article we're going to be looking at today is titled Ivermectin. Enigmatic, multifaceted wonder drug continues to surprise and exceed expectations.
Catchy.
Right. It was published in the Journal of Antibiotics back in 2017.
Okay.
And it kind of digs deep into ivermectin's whole story, like where it came from, how it works, or at least how we think it works, and its potential for treating a whole bunch of other diseases.
Yeah, it's a pretty amazing story when you think about it.
Yeah.
This drug has been around for over 30 years.
Wow.
And we are still learning new things about what it can do.
That's incredible.
And it all started with a soil sample.
Really?
Yeah, back in the 1970s, a Japanese scientist named Satoshi Mura discovered a microbe in the soil that was effective against parasites in animals.
So this tiny little microbe led to this drug that has helped millions of people.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible.
That's wild.
Merck & Co. developed that compound into the drug that we all know as ivermectin, and it really quickly made a huge difference in veterinary medicine.
Okay.
But it wasn't long before researchers realized that it could also be used to treat parasitic infections in humans, too.
And it's had such a huge impact on global health.
Absolutely.
I mean, over 200 million people have been treated for river blindness because of ivermectin.
Wow.
Cases have dropped 90% in some areas.
That's amazing.
It's been a major weapon in the fight against elephantiasis, too. Another one of those awful parasitic diseases.
Absolutely. And you know what makes ivermectin even more impressive is its safety record.
Real.
It's remarkably safe for us, partly because it can't cross the blood-brain barrier.
Oh, right.
So that barrier acts like a bouncer for the brain.
Oh, good.
Keeping out any potentially harmful substances.
Yeah, gotcha.
And ivermectin, thankfully, can't get past it.
So it's laser focused on those parasites and not messing with our brains.
Exactly.
That's really cool.
We know that it mainly affects glutamate-gated chloride channels in parasites.
Okay.
Which basically causes paralysis.
Oh, wow.
By disrupting their nervous system.
Oh, okay.
But here's the interesting thing. The amount of ivermectin that you need to actually cause paralysis in a lab setting is much higher than what we find in people who take just a normal dose.
So that's kind of a mystery drug then.
Well,
I mean, we know it works, but we're not entirely sure how.
Yeah, there is some growing evidence that its success might be tied to its ability to boost the host's immune response.
Oh, interesting.
It's almost like ivermectin gives the immune system, a power-up.
Right.
To help our bodies fight off these invaders even better.
That makes sense.
And speaking of fighting off invaders,
yeah.
Here's something else that I find fascinating. You know how most drugs that attack parasites become less effective over time?
Yeah.
Because the parasites develop resistance. Well, ivermectin's been used for over 30 years, and those parasites have not developed resistance.
That's really unusual.
It's true.
Wow.
Its track record is really impressive.
Yeah.
Most drugs that go directly after a parasite actually end up making it easier for them to evolve ways to evade the attack.
Oh, yeah.
But ivermectin's immunomodulatory effect might be the key to its long-lasting effectiveness. By subtly shifting the battlefield more in favor of the host.
Oh, interesting.
It makes it harder for those parasites to develop any resistance.
So it's not just a parasite killer.
No.
It's a master strategist.
Yeah, I like that.
That's amazing.
And that's really only the beginning of what makes ivermectin so interesting.
Okay.
This article really digs into a whole range of other diseases that ivermectin might be able to treat, and some of them are pretty surprising.
This is where it gets really interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, hit me with the surprising stuff. What else can this wonder drug do?
Well, we've talked about its success with treating things like river blindness and elephantiasis.
Right.
But it's also used to treat things like scabies.
Oh. Yeah.
Head lice, and even rosacea.
Yeah, those are things that most people have at least heard of. They're pretty common.
Exactly. So it's not just this exotic drug for, far-off diseases.
Right.
It's tackling everyday health problems, too.
That's really interesting.
Yeah, and that's just scratching the surface.
Okay.
What has researchers really excited are some of the more unexpected potential uses.
Like what?
For ivermectin. For example, there's some evidence that it might have antiviral activity.
Oh, an antiviral. You mean like for things like
Yeah.
flu or even...
So there are studies that show some pretty promising results against dengue fever
Okay.
and encephalitis viruses.
Wow.
And there's even some early research looking into its potential against HIV.
HIV, that would be huge.
It's still early days.
Yeah.
But the research is definitely intriguing.
Yeah.
And the potential benefits don't stop there.
Cool.
There's also research that suggests that it might have antibacterial properties.
Oh, wow.
It could even be helpful against multi-drug-resistant tuberculosis.
Oh, really?
Which is a big concern because drug resistance is making it harder and harder to treat.
Tuberculosis is one of those diseases that we thought we kind of had under control.
Right.
But now, these drug-resistant strains are becoming a real problem.
Absolutely.
Could ivermectin be part of that solution?
Well, it's possible. Early research suggests it might also be effective against the bacteria that causes Buruli ulcer, which is a really terrible skin disease that can lead to permanent disfigurement if it's not treated properly.
So we got antiviral, antibacterial. Is there anything this drug can't do? Or are we going to find out it cures the common cold next?
Well, I wouldn't go that far, but there's one more area of research that has a lot of scientists really interested.
What's that?
And that is cancer treatment.
Oh, wow.
Several studies have suggested that ivermectin might act as an anti-cancer agent, potentially slowing or even stopping tumor growth.
Wow.
And here's the really interesting part. It might even be able to target cancer stem cells.
Now I'm really interested.
Yeah.
I've heard of cancer stem cells. They're kind of like the root of the problem, right?
Exactly.
Like they're much harder to kill than regular cancer cells.
You got it. They're thought to be a major reason why some cancers are so hard to treat and why they can come back even after what seems like successful treatment.
Yeah.
So the fact that ivermectin might be able to target those cells is a big deal.
I can see why researchers would be really excited about that.
Yeah.
It seems like every time we turn around, ivermectin is popping up with some new potential benefit.
It really is remarkable.
It is.
And on top of all of those potential uses, there's another really exciting development in the world of ivermectin.
What's that?
New ways to deliver the drug.
Oh, right. The article mentioned something about long-lasting injections and even skin patches, which would make it a lot easier for people to take.
Exactly.
That could be a game changer, especially for people in areas where access to healthcare is limited.
You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
Traditional oral ivermectin, while effective, does have some drawbacks.
Okay.
It often needs frequent dosing.
Yeah.
Which can be tough for some people to stick to, especially if they live in, remote areas or just have busy lives.
Yeah. It makes sense if you have to take a pill every day. It's easy to forget.
Right.
Or miss doses.
Yeah. So how would these new delivery systems help?
Yeah. How would they help?
Well, imagine a slow-release formulation of ivermectin.
Okay.
That could be injected just once every few months.
Wow.
Or even once a year.
That would be incredible.
That would dramatically improve adherence to treatment regimens, making sure people get the full benefit of the medication.
No more worrying about missing doses or running out of pills.
Exactly. And then there are skin patches.
Right.
They offer another exciting possibility.
Okay.
Imagine a world where a simple skin patch can help protect you from malaria-carrying mosquitoes.
That'd be amazing.
Or a patch that could deliver ivermectin right to the site of a skin infection.
No more needles, no more pills, just a patch.
Exactly.
That's really cool.
It's a compelling idea.
Yeah.
And the possibilities don't end there.
Really?
Researchers are even looking into using nanoparticles.
Nanoparticles, wow.
To deliver ivermectin directly to specific cells or tissues in the body.
So we're talking like super targeted drug delivery.
Precisely. This could be a game changer for increasing ivermectin's effectiveness.
Okay.
And reducing potential side effects.
Right.
By just delivering the drug right where it's needed most.
It sounds futuristic, but incredibly exciting at the same time.
It is, but as with any powerful tool, we need to be mindful of the potential downsides.
Right.
We've talked a lot about the benefits of ivermectin. But like any medication, it does have some potential side effects.
That's a great point. We've been talking about all these amazing things it might be able to do.
Yeah.
But it's important to remember that it is still a medication.
Right.
And with any medication, there's always potential risks.
Yeah, overall, ivermectin has a really good safety profile.
Okay.
It's generally well tolerated. And serious side effects are rare.
Okay.
especially when it's used at the doses that are recommended for the conditions it's approved to treat.
That's good. That's reassuring.
Yeah.
But what about all those other potential uses we were just talking about?
Right.
Like, what about when it's used for things that it's not officially approved for yet?
That's a really good point. And when it comes to using ivermectin off-label
Right.
for some of these newer applications,
Mm.
it's really important to be cautious.
Okay.
The risks might be different,
Uh-huh.
and we really need more research to fully understand the long-term effects.
So it's not just a free-for-all. Just because it's generally safe for some things doesn't mean it's safe for everything.
Yeah, absolutely not.
Okay.
Any use of ivermectin outside of its approved, indication should be done under the guidance of a doctor
Yeah.
or another qualified healthcare professional.
Right.
They can really help weigh the potential benefits and risks and make sure it's the right treatment for you.
Right. It's not like you should just grab a tube of horse paste and start self-medicating.
Exactly. And it's also important to remember that the research on a lot of these potential uses is still ongoing.
Right.
We need a lot more studies to confirm how effective and safe ivermectin is for all of these new applications.
So it's kind of a story that's still being written.
Yeah.
We've learned so much about ivermectin.
Yeah.
But there's still so much more to discover.
Absolutely. And with all of this potential comes a lot of questions, especially about how we make sure everyone has access to these new treatments.
Right.
We don't want to end up in a situation where only certain people can benefit from these breakthroughs.
It would be a real shame if these advances only helped those who could afford them.
Yeah.
We need to make sure that everyone, no matter how much money they have or where they live, can benefit from the potential of ivermectin.
Exactly. Equitable access to healthcare is crucial.
Yeah.
And then there's also the issue of making sure that ivermectin isn't overused or misused.
Right.
Just because it's shown promise for a lot of different conditions doesn't mean it's a miracle cure for everything.
It's like that old saying, when a hammer is the only tool you have, everything starts to look like a nail.
Right.
We need to be careful not to view ivermectin as the solution for every health problem out there.
Exactly. It's important to remember that every medication has its limitations. And we need to really rely on sound scientific evidence to guide our decisions about healthcare.
Well said. Well, speaking of relying on scientific evidence, I think it's time to address the elephant in the room.
Okay.
The whole controversy surrounding ivermectin and COVID-19.
Right.
I know we said we weren't going to wade into those waters.
Yeah.
But it's such a big part of the conversation around ivermectin these days. It feels like we can't just ignore it.
You're right. It would be remiss of us not to at least touch upon it.
Okay.
But I think we really need to approach it with the same, level of scientific rigor and objectivity
Absolutely.
that we've used throughout this whole discussion.
For sure. So let's break it down.
Okay.
What are the claims being made about ivermectin and COVID-19? And what does the science actually say?
So the main claim is that ivermectin can prevent or treat COVID-19 infection.
Okay.
This idea came from some early laboratory studies that showed ivermectin could inhibit the replication of the virus in a petri dish.
So, there was some initial scientific rationale.
Yeah.
But as we've said a bunch of times already today, what happens in a lab doesn't always translate to what happens in a real human body.
Exactly. And that's where things get complicated.
Okay.
While there are some smaller observational studies that suggested there might be a benefit, larger and better designed clinical trials haven't been able to show the same results.
So the evidence from those high quality studies doesn't actually back up the claim that ivermectin is effective against COVID-19.
That's the consensus right now from the major health organizations, like the World Health Organization and the FDA.
Okay.
They don't recommend using it for COVID-19, except in clinical trials.
That's a pretty clear message.
Yeah.
But what about all those people who say they took ivermectin and it helped them get over COVID-19?
Yeah.
I'm sure some of our listeners are probably wondering about that.
Yeah, and it's important to remember that personal stories and anecdotal evidence aren't the same as scientific evidence.
Right.
There are so many factors that can influence how someone recovers from an illness. It's really hard to say for sure whether a particular treatment is the reason they got better.
Right.
Especially without a proper study to compare it to.
Right. Correlation doesn't equal causation.
Exactly.
Just because somebody took ivermectin and felt better doesn't necessarily mean that ivermectin was the reason they got better.
Right.
It could have been something totally different.
Exactly. And even if more research did show that there was a small benefit of ivermectin for COVID-19, it's really important to remember that it wouldn't replace things like vaccination or other proven measures.
Absolutely. Vaccines are still our best weapon against COVID-19.
Sure.
They're the most effective way to protect yourself and others from getting really sick.
Yeah.
Or having complications from the virus.
Right. And I think this kind of brings us back to what we've been talking about today.
Okay.
You know, ivermectin is a really fascinating drug with an amazing history and a lot of potential.
Yeah.
But it's not a miracle cure.
Right.
It's so important to approach any claims about what it can do, whether it's for COVID-19 or anything else, with, you know, a healthy dose of critical thinking and skepticism.
Well said. We need to really rely on the best scientific evidence that's available to make smart decisions about our health and the health of our families.
And that means staying informed, asking questions, and being open to changing our minds as new information comes out. The world of science is constantly changing.
That's a great reminder for everybody. Well, I think we've covered a lot of ground today.
We have.
We've really explored this fascinating world of ivermectin. From its humble beginnings in a Japanese soil sample.
That's pretty amazing.
To its potential role in treating so many diseases, including some we never would have imagined.
It's a story of exceeding expectations, for sure.
It is.
This wonder drug has been surprising researchers for decades.
Yeah.
And it's still leading to new discoveries.
And along the way, we've learned about how complicated ivermectin is.
Right.
The challenges of drug resistance. And the risks and benefits of exploring new uses for medications that already exist.
Yeah, we even went into some of the controversy.
Yeah, we did.
And how important it is to really stick to the scientific evidence.
Absolutely.
And not get swept up in the hype.
We hope this deep dive has given you all the information you need
to
have some really good conversations about ivermectin.
Yeah.
And to understand both its potential and its limitations.
And as always, we encourage you to keep learning. And keep asking questions.
Yeah.
The world of science is always changing, and there's always something new to discover.
So stay curious, stay informed.
Absolutely.
And join us next time for another deep dive.
We'll see then.
Into a fascinating corner of the world of knowledge.
Of knowledge.